Should you be training as an athlete if you're not one? Well, the answer is yes, as Clifton Harski, a good friend of mine, says. And we talked about a lot of training stuff about using kettlebells. They are not completely useless, by the way. And what does actually functional kettlebell training mean? And if you should take the certification from Clifton Harski that is working in the pain-free performance certification program as well. He's an educator, he's a trainer, he's an online coach, a brand new one to be fair. And we've been through a lot of things in this podcast. Have a listen. Here is the man, Clifton Harski, with me today. Hey, Clifton, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
It's been a long time since we been together in Croatia. When was it? Was it 2 years ago? Was it 2022?
I think it was 21.
No,
22, you're right. It was 22.
Yeah, 21, everything was closed down. So, yeah, 22. And I missed you last year when you were hosting an event in Zagreb again. So I'm really sorry for that. I will not miss your functional kettlebell training course in Zagreb this year. So I'll be definitely there.
I'm pumped. This time I even bring my wife.
Oh my God, that will be something. Are you really tight on schedule? Because this is, a public invitation right now to Slovenia for both of you. You're invited. So, if you find the time or if you can plan ahead for an extra day, hey, I'll be really glad to have you over here.
That'd be amazing. We have planned 10 days of exploring. And we have not scheduled it yet.
Nice. Well, let's talk about it after that one. So functional kettlebell training, I already mentioned it. What is functional kettlebell training?
So functional kettlebell training is our spin on the kettlebell education and how to use it in your training. And the reason that we introduced something new, there's two ways that people use kettlebells. Kettlebell sport, which is its own sport. And so it is not necessarily, in my opinion, the world's greatest way to train for general fitness or even for athleticism, because the goal is the sport itself. And then the other option that's traditionally out there is hard style, like a RKC or a strong first. And it's fine, it's good stuff, but we just don't only do that. We like to use the kettlebell in a bunch of different directions, in a bunch of different ways. And so our tagline is actually do more with the kettlebell, not less. And so often, people are like, you can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean I can't do that? It's a lateral lunge with a swing. Of course I can do it. It's taking the good things that you did in your bilateral stance, but adding it at another angle. And this is like hearsay for, we're like heretics for the kettlebell traditional folks.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest with you. A couple of years ago, when I would look at something like you do right now, and I see it, I would go, "Oh, come on, don't give me that, blah blah blah." You know what I mean? But I think that the part of being a good trainer is to possess the ability to change your mind over the course of time, because you start to look at things differently. You have more experience. And I think that it used to be like, or maybe it still is like that people try to pick camps, you're in the barbell camp, powerlifting camp, or whatever. So you just go with whatever fits your narrative at the moment. But I don't think that's a good way to go.
Yeah, I think what ends up happening, and we even have it within little factions of kettlebell training, is that we ultimately find the thing that we enjoy doing. So some people just really enjoy powerlifting. I find it very boring. The reason I personally like the kettlebell is there's, I think, more skill required to control the bell and control your body. And so there's this athletic skill component that is missing in a lot of, whether it just be aesthetic or true capacity outputs. And I say that just objectively, not with any ill intent towards bodybuilding, physique training, or training for a marathon. That just doesn't do it for me. And I think it's indicative of all the people out there finding whatever it is that they enjoy.
Mm.
Unfortunately, what we end up doing is we go, I'm a kettlebell guy, he's a bodybuilder guy, screw that guy. And then we have these weird artificial arguments about what's good. And it's like, no, they're all good. They're just different.
Yeah. Yeah, true. True. It's would you use the same stuff you do for you because you like them right now for elite level athletes?
So that's an awesome question. I don't think all of it. And now here's why. So when we teach, we have this whole progression: be able, be athletic, then be adaptable. And be
Mm.
able means the basic, it's the fundamentals. This looks much more like bilateral squat, bilateral hinge, press, pull, etc. Be athletic looks more like split stances, stepping, changing directions, rotation. And then
Mm.
adaptable is I'm going to give you new stuff pretty regularly. And are you able to adapt your strength and fitness qualities and accomplish that task? A true high level athlete, if they're in a court sport that is very reactive in nature, they're always adapting. They're always doing these split stances, multi-directional training, and they're getting that stimulus every single week. What they might be missing is just a real basic strength overload. And so for them, I would generally keep it a simpler training program with the occasional fun stuff, because having worked with enough athletes, they usually like the stuff that feels more athletic because it feels like what they're doing. So it can improve their buy-in. For a regular ass people like myself, washed up athletes, I don't get to play sports as much anymore. And so I'm trying to create athletic overload and athletic opportunities in my training session.
Mm. True, true. I think that for if you look at elite level athletes and if you still want some kind of improvement, you need to do kind of both, right? So the basic strength and conditioning stuff that we've always done to develop, power output and so on, to go into muscle adaptation a bit differently, and then use the additional stuff that is not necessarily, in my opinion, and I like to see your view on it, not necessarily mimicking the sport itself, because I still believe that, and again, that's my view, that the true specifics you get while playing that sport. And you told me, yeah, I don't get to play that sport so much, so I try to create that differently. What is your point of view on that?
Yeah, it's we get a lot of push, not us personally, but like in the field, we always get pushback if you try to load a movement that looks like a movement in the sport. People will say, just get strong, right? And I'm like, that, yeah, absolutely. However, we also adapt specifically to that new position. And as an example, if we train heavy heeled deadlifts and squats just all the time, what I see with the clients and I see with a lot of personal trainers is that they lose their ability to be athletic through the ball of their foot.
Mm-hmm.
And so we absolutely adapt to the stimulus we put in. So with those elite athletes, the fact that they still are getting all those athletic qualities means all I need to do is fill wherever their holes are, right? Whatever their opportunity is, that's what I'm going after. Um, Getting some of those slower, higher loads on them in those positions, specifically like in the off season, to me, it stands to reason that if we did some eccentrics, some isometrics, and some loading with different types of stimulus coming into those similar positions, like a leaning squat or ball of the foot Bulgarians or ball of the foot split squats, is that all it's going to do is create a more robust tissue that's more ready to handle the stressors of the sport. But I'm not doing it specifically to emulate the sport, if that makes sense.
I understand. Yeah. The things that I see, I think that or there isn't, but should be a fine line between, how
functional things can get. For example, if you look at racket sports, what I see people doing right now is having a tennis racket, attaching some strings, or rubber bands to it, and then holding it back while the athlete is going for a swing, which in my opinion and in my experience completely messes up the timing component for that racket sport, for example. So this is dumb functional training, but I still see people doing it. And
Yep.
so what is your take on that one?
Yeah, that's one of those things that I think it's pretty clear that like a heavy basketball or a heavy baseball bat or bending your tennis racket, all it does is actually interfere with that motor engram of how you would be normally swinging or shooting or performing your sport. And at that point, it's definitely no good, right? Like I don't think having a weighted backhand is going to make your backhand a whole hell of a lot better. With that being said, like some weighted external rotations, some reverse raises, that's enough to get those muscles stronger and then put it together in the actual sport activity.
Yeah, yeah. I think that you and Mark Ripto probably would not agree on everything, but this is something that he was talking a lot about, many years ago, and I believe that still holds so many truth in it. You cannot just by increasing, for example, a baseball by 100 grams, you will not get stronger. All you do is you mess completely up your practice component. So you
Yeah.
practice for doing it pretty much wrong. And the same goes, or soccer, because I'm from Europe, so soccer is a big thing for us. I mean, let's be honest, soccer is the true football. American football,
Yes.
you play it with your hands, for God's sake. It's not football, okay?
It doesn't make any sense. We stole the name and we're just bad people.
But then I see still, I mean, football coaches or soccer coaches bending legs of the football players while kicking the ball. Why would you mess up the feeling? It's just insane. But this is still happening in the industry. So are we as the industry making a lot of athletes worse?
Probably. Now, whether like how much worse, I don't know. Like, I think there's an argument to be made that chasing top end strength is actually potentially problematic for high-tuned athletes. I liken it back to basketball players. If you want to, like Ripito, right? He would probably just tell his basketball players to keep back squatting and keep deadlifting and just get stronger. But that adaptation is going to cause them to also get stiffer. Like you have to get stiffer under a heavy load. And it over time, in talking with enough basketball players, we just kind of feel stiff. Now, I'm using that's like a big exaggerative example.
Yeah.
Because most basketball players have not reached a level of strength where that starts to become a problem.
Mm.
However, I do think there's a spot where that happens. And for me, I think the added benefit of performance that we see with any athlete when they start adding strength on and they've never done that before, as coaches, we see it and we go, wow, look at this improvement. Let's keep doing that. But the problem is improvement is not linear. It starts relatively quick and then it peters off. And yet on the peter off, that's where a lot of coaches keep chasing the original exercises or the original lifts, which are traditionally the big lifts. And I think that's where we have this unique opportunity to just keep getting better at other positions. So that could be as simple as, oh, your back squat progress has slowed. Let's get better at Bulgarian split squats. Oh, that's gotten better. Let's get better at lateral split squats. Now let's get better at step ups. Cool. Front squats. And we could just cycle through different strength positions because every position is going to challenge the muscles ever so slightly differently. And the more we chase one attribute or one lift, that means we're doing it at the expense of something else within our training. And so by cycling through different lifts, I think it like raises all tides instead of being good at the one thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I usually opt in for mixing it all together a bit. So using still the big lifts, the usual bilateral stances, and mixing it up with, I'm a huge fan of lateral squat. I'm a huge fan of Bulgarians because I think that can be really, really very efficient with athletes, and I like to get that in a lot. So there are a couple of things that usually I'm using at the same time, and at least with my athletes, I do not chase that top strength component all the time because they don't need it. You know, if I'm training a goalie right now, I mean, they do not compete in Olympic lifting.
Yep.
They do not compete in powerlifting. So I'm not concerned with their 1RM, to be fair. You know,
Right.
I mean, I like to see improvement, but I don't need, to go all out just for the strength component, but let's improve other components with it. That should be athletic training at the end.
That's what I think. And one of the things that I think I find is that prioritizing power or speed work under load with these athletes maintains their high end strength really nicely, but it doesn't beat them up as much either.
Mm. Yeah. What about periodization? Because I think that is something that in real life does not happen a lot if you're not employed by a club and if you still train the elite level athlete. I mean, looking at things right now, one of my hockey players that I'm still training got back from Russia. He's playing in the Russian league, which is quite heavy, hard, and so on. Bigger ice than in the US, than in the NHL. But usually what I get with him per year would be 8 to 12 weeks stop.
Right.
That's about it. And if they're playing good with a team, it means they make the playoffs and so on and so on. The season is quite long. A lot of games are happening. So how are you going to do any periodized training?
I don't think you can. I think the only periodization exists for Olympic athletes that have a singular type of event that's going to happen in like a 1 week period.
Yeah.
Because you can peak for a race. You can peak for a couple days. You can't peak for a 5-month season. And for you or I can't peak for just living my life. Right? Like I need all my qualities. I need strength, I need power, I need endurance, I need cardio, I need flexibility. I need it all the time. And so I'm going to always be running some sort of concurrent model. And within that model, and I think the same thing is true for seasonal athletes. During the season, you're going to probably prioritize some power, some hypertrophy work that doesn't elicit too much eccentric stress because you can't have them too sore before their games, right? It would be too fatiguing. But when they get to the off season, that's their opportunity to build strength or build size that then hopefully carries through the next season as they just fight to maintain it.
Yeah. Usually what I do is I test them when they get back. Well, first they have a few days off because they need it after the season. Then I test them and I'm starting to make the weakest link that I identify better while trying to maintain or improve all the other things as well where they're already good at. But if you go and if you correct the weakest link in a chain, you get them ultimately better for the next season because there's not enough time to do, like even if you try to, let's say, okay, let's build some mass. What are you going to do in 8 weeks? It's not going to happen much unless you have an assisted athlete, which is just bodybuilders. Everything else is drug tested. So if you try to do that in 8 weeks, you will not reach, like huge improvements in muscle mass. But you can reach some improvements in certain points if you focus on them, but it's not periodized training anymore. It cannot be in real life. But this is, let's transition back to the most common client that we as trainers actually train in our life, which is 95% would be general populace clients, right? But I don't get it. Most of the trainers that I see are still seeking, most education in athletic performance, but nobody's training athletes.
I
I
know.
just don't get it. It's mind blowing. Do you see the same
It's
trajectory?
I see it in two directions actually. So you get general population trainers. Like I teach two classes every week at a Lifetime. A Lifetime is this big country club, very nice facility. And I still coach twice a week because I want to make sure I'm sharp with my ability to coach regular people. Because when I'm training trainers how to teach it, I
Mm,
can say, and I did this the day before yesterday.
yeah.
Um, right? So with them, okay, so the trainers there, they look outward and they see sport coaches and it looks romantic. It looks fun. It looks cool. Oh, I get to work with athletes. And so then they look to those people for their training ideas, and none of it makes sense. And this is why I have a firm disagreement because just like I said earlier, if I was training high level athletes, I would keep their training more simple because they're already getting athletic, dynamic, adaptive type of inputs in their sport practices and games. And so I just need to manage their fatigue and get them particular stimulus. And then you get the S&C coaches telling fitness coaches that's how you should train people. Do only the basics. Just do the simple stuff. Because if they want to do sport, tell them to go play sport. And
Mm.
I firmly disagree with that. So in the United States right now, the fastest growing sport is called pickleball. Have you heard of
Yeah, I know.
pickleball?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because a good friend of mine, she was a former tennis player, 28 on the WTA, and now she's smashing it in pickleball.
It's unbelievable how popular this is. And like there's a park across the street from my house from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. the whole summer. People are out there and people are always getting hurt. They're always getting hurt. And it's because they have not trained athletically. They've only trained simple. So they stopped their ability to move like an athlete. And so my point is this, to answer your question specifically, regular trainers of general population are listening to S&C and then trying to train their people like S&C athletes, but they're not athletes. It's too simple. I think for general population, we actually need to make it more complex, more dynamic, because that's their only opportunity to get some of the training stimulus of moving like an athlete. And that could be as simple as uh, speed skater jumps, side
Mm.
shuffles. Instead of doing a box jump from a dead stop, do an approach box jump, do some shuttle runs. Yeah, clearly we have to work our way up over time with our clients, but it gives them one, it's more fun, I think. It's more engaging. They can feel like an athlete. And it's a much more controlled environment, right? Like there's this idea like if hey Alex, if you want to go be an athlete, just go play soccer. But if you haven't
Mm.
played soccer in 10 years, what are the odds that you make it through 3 games without some injury?
Yeah.
It's probably not good. And so I think it's bad advice. And I think that we can give people the opportunity to train like an athlete. Like, and when I say that, I mean with athletic qualities in a controlled environment. That's why I don't play basketball anymore. I don't trust the other men that I play with to not undercut me or take me out some way.
Mhm. Mhm. What about CrossFit though? I mean, it's not what we're talking about. It's not exactly same as what they're doing because
Correct.
what I strongly, I mean, let me explain first. I like the idea that CrossFit brings to the market. I like the idea of it. I like the fact that they made a lot of things popular again that were kind of lost. Olympic
Yep.
weightlifting for one was pretty much lost, and it gained a huge popularity again because of CrossFit. But on the other side, taking one of the most complex movements and overload them and then do them for reps, I think that's a stupid way of training.
Yeah.
It's not going to do anything good for the people that you train. And then the second thing that I strongly disagree with, because I was doing my level one CrossFit cert, when was it? It was a long time ago. I know it was awful for me because it was in Finland and it was in January. So it was like minus 35 degrees Celsius. It was freaking cold. And I'm not a person for cold. I just hate it. But, you cannot possibly teach anybody in one weekend only about everything that you should teach and provide then to your clients as a CrossFit coach, including Olympic weightlifting. Are you kidding me? Only one weekend. The people
Yeah,
that are doing Olympic lifting and the trainers, they're dedicating their lives to it to make it really good. And then you try to, give a 40-kilogram barbell, so a barbell with extra weight on it, and teach them how to snatch. Come on. That's just plain stupid. That is the program for how to injure people, not how to get them better and improve their quality of life.
agree. You know what I actually think is a good program? CrossFit with no barbells.
Yeah, but then we have what? Calisthenics.
Yeah, I
Pretty.
mean it is. Yeah, it is. But it's a funny way. I had a gym chain, Gold's Gym Chain. They launched a program called Gold's Fit, and their whole thing is this is CrossFit but without barbells,
Yeah.
and it's just a pretty easy way to keep it relatively safe. But I agree wholeheartedly with you. It's a overly ambitious program for general fitness.
Mm. I mean, I like what the guys are doing. Like Rich Froning was, to me, an amazing athlete all through. But how many like him are there? You know, or back
Not
in
very
my
many.
day, back in my it was Jason Khalipa and Froning and so on and so on. I don't know the new guys anymore. It's just been out for too long. It's
I I wonder. I bet you the new guys are. They've been doing it the longest, right? So they started when they were teenagers, more than likely. So they're probably absolute must. And to your point, like when we critique CrossFit, it's not saying that the athletes aren't impressive. They're
no,
incredibly
exactly,
impressive what they can do.
exactly.
But you're right. I mean, look, CrossFit brought Olympic weightlifting. I think it also brought powerlifting into the
Yeah,
market
yeah. It's back in
big
complete.
time.
And that's what I'm
So,
always saying. I like the idea of it. I like everything, I like how they build communities because they're amazing at it. The only
yep.
question, is when a vegan CrossFitter flies to the moon, is it worth telling what he is first? So which thing does he tell first?
Vegan. He
That's
says
it.
vegan first. Yeah, I think
You
so.
think? But does it really
Yeah.
matter? Because nobody's there to hear it. So kind of problem. No, but just jokes aside, I mean, the community building aspect was phenomenal. I think that we all should learn from it because building communities like that and inspiring people, it's amazing. It's one
Yep.
of the phenomenal components that I really appreciate about it. But it just, the programming stuff and the way they train that bothers me really in that.
So, okay, aside from the fact that like, the Olympic weightlifting is at best optimistic, realistically probably unsafe, right?
Yeah.
For most people. Uh, the thing that I notice, and I say this because I've been fortunate enough to travel and teach so many different certifications. And when I had my 7 facilities, I had people that were CrossFitters coming in and trying our classes because they were told that they were surprisingly hard.
Mhm.
And it was never hard for them from an output standpoint. But where they fell apart was we did so much more rotation and lateral and coordinative movements, they couldn't figure it out. I
Mhm.
always found them to be very, for lack of a better term, clumsy. And
Mhm.
I think that is what a lot of people train themselves to be. And so when I'm saying like be athletic, it means can you side shuffle without tripping and falling? Can you
Yeah.
do something and look like an athlete, or does everything look stiff, robotic, and clumsy?
Mm. True, true. By the way, me critiquing CrossFit as such, there are amazing CrossFit coaches in this world as well, that really know their stuff and know how to apply certain things to the right demographic. And I
Yeah.
always put up one guy that I was fortunate enough to get to know in person. This was Yami Tikkanen. I believe Yami was training the female games winner, Annie Thorsdottir. I believe that's
Okay.
that. I'm really I have to apologize if I pronounce it wrong. So, sorry, sorry, Annie, for that. But he was one of these trainers that I looked at him and said, okay, that's different. That's
Yeah.
not the usual crazy stuff that you would see, but he was really smart about training. So I'm really kudos to him, and that's why I'm praising his name quite often when I'm talking about CrossFit. So yeah, what is your experience otherwise with just very beginner clients? So how to get them into training, because they usually see something on YouTube, on social media, and they just go to the gym and yeah, now I'm doing it.
Yeah. So my studios that I owned, it was a company called Fitwall, and they were group fitness between 14 and 20 people. And then we also had private training and semi-private training, so groups up to four. And this was your most general population. Our average client age was 43. We're 70% females. Most were, I mean, they're adults. They have kids. They haven't been very active. So when they came into us, the way that we programmed was I would run a different workout every day of the week, but we would repeat the workouts for 3 weeks in a row.
Mhm.
So if you came on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you did the same three workouts 3 times in a row. For my first 3 years, it was a whole month of repeating. But what we found was this: in week 4, our attendance dropped off. And
Mhm.
people kept saying, Cliff, it's easy on week 4. And I would say, well, that's because you're fitter and you have to push harder now. Because we repeated it, you're making progress. Now you have to choose to go harder. But here's I think the secret about most Gen Pop. They don't actually care if they improve. Their improvement, and what I mean by improvement is the way that we tend to think of it, setting PRs. Keep going, keep going. Their improvement is feeling better generally. It's sleeping better, it's having more energy, it's not hurting when they try to move. It's improving flexibility as much, if not more, than just their strength. And so when I'm writing a program for general population, I'm like, hey, I need strength and mobility and endurance in like equal parts,
Mhm.
generally speaking, right? There's certainly some people that are just runners and they show up and I'm like, you don't need to run anymore. You need to lift some weights. You're incredibly weak. And so it changes person to person. But as a whole, I'm trying to check all those buckets. And those are my be able buckets. Those are singular qualities. Once they've been doing that for a period of time, then I'm like, all right, now we need to get some power and I need to get into different planes of motion because I want you to be able to control your body through space. I think I've got the world's best definition of what it means to move well. Here it is, because FMS says move well, and different people say move well.
Yeah,
Mine is you do it on purpose, and that's
yeah.
it. Can you do it on purpose? I chose to squat with my knees out or in or feet narrow instead of this is the only option I got. And so when you only have one option, well, that's some people avoiding pain, or some people learn one option because they always train the exact same way. And then they end up being fearful or having an avoidance of everything that's not that one way. And so they get out of balance and they are more apt to injury, I think. So with our clients, to answer the question, every day was full body. Every day we squat, hinge, lunge, push, pull, carry, rotate. And we just change the exercises from day to day because I never know when they're going to come into their classes. They don't have set times.
Mhm.
And then every 3 weeks, 7 new workouts, new challenges. One of the things that we heard time and time again that they enjoyed was week 1, they were not very good at the exercises. Week 2, they felt themselves improving. Even if they didn't lift heavier, things got easier, smoother. Week 3, they felt a lot better, more confident. And then week 4 is brand new again. And so we built in these continual opportunities for victories for them. That is not just the scale or the mirror, because unfortunately, I can't address their sleep, their stress, their home life, how many pizzas they're eating every week. I can try, but the reality is I can't be at their house cooking for them.
So you're not doing that? I'm just
Not
kidding.
too often. It depends. When I would, maybe once upon a time ago, if it was paying enough.
Yeah, I know. How many times you got asked, "Hey, would you do that for me?" Because I got asked like a lot.
Yeah, we would actually get those requests. Like, can you come to our kitchen and go grocery shopping with us? I'm like, well, no, actually, I don't have the time.
I did that. I did that with my clients because, well, it was paid time. So
Yep.
instead of the workout, what I've done, because we always went for the whole package. So if I take you as my one-on-one client, it's different with the groups. But if I take you on as my one-on-one client, I want to take care of as much uh, levels of your life as possible because we
Right.
are out for goals. So going grocery shopping and teaching you about reading the labels properly was, one of the big things that we've done. I was doing
Yeah.
kitchen makeovers with them, and I was actually doing some cooking classes with my clients as well.
Yeah.
Because this is simply because I really enjoy to cook. So when the whole family goes on vacation, Papa is cooking because that's the only time in the year where I really, can enjoy that being in the kitchen, going to the market. And I love Italy for that. It's the same in Croatia. It's the same in Greece. Even if I go, like the Middle East and so on, I always try to search for more local markets and try new things out because I just enjoy it. And then I bring that, or I was doing that when I was coaching a lot, and I was doing that with my clients. But I'm
Hmm.
still getting the same questions today. Hey, would you do another cooking class? Well, no, I would. It's not a question about would I, but it's a question, can I right now? Is there the
Right.
time? Because the time component becomes the problem thing with us.
Yeah. 100%.
How long, Clifton, how long are you in the industry? I know we're almost the same age. You're luckily older than I am. I'm still, I'm much, much younger than you are. But how long
Yeah.
are
And
you
you
in the
have
industry?
all your hair and it's all black. You've only got a little bit of gray. So I started coaching in 2001. While I was still in college, I was doing part-time personal training. And what that turned into is as college progressed, I picked up a number of clients that were just dudes that wanted to play basketball and wanted to jump higher because I'm a 6 foot, goofy white guy that could dunk. And
Mm,
so they would see the things I was doing in the gym. And they're like, that must be why he can dunk. Can you
yeah.
train me? And so I got an opportunity to train people then. That progressed into starting my own boot camp where I just had out in the parks. I trained people that I worked with. I trained various people. And eventually in 2010, I started traveling and teaching for a company called MoveNat. And that was just a very lucky situation. I went as a participant. The owner, founder, his name Erwan Lacour. I don't know if you ever heard of MoveNat. Um,
No, no.
it means move naturally. So all about moving outside, being adaptable in your surroundings, and being able to apply your strength in real world scenarios instead of just being able to do a bunch of pull-ups, right? And
Yeah.
so for a year, I traveled and I taught 88 workshops. And that's where I met a lot of people within the industry. Like I stayed at Gray Cook's house. I trained him for 5 days out in the woods. And there was enough notoriety about us because he had been in Men's Health. He had a book that he was featured in. He was being featured on like the Paleo Solution podcast. It
Mhm.
was right when CrossFit was at its peak and paleo was at its peak. So we were traveling And I got fortunate. I met a lot of people. When I left that, that's when I got invited to start the coaching, being in charge of the fitness of this company called Fitwall, and we took it from 1 to 7 locations in 6 years, and that gave me the huge opportunity just to work with every location had like 300 clients. And so when you're working with 300 clients, and I was traveling between all of them, coaching 30 classes a week, coaching personal training. And since 2010, I've been averaging 2 workshops or certifications for coaches every month. So I'm up to 400 plus workshops and certifications. And that's how I got my start. And what's been very fortunate for me is because I've had my own business, I've worked in a group fitness, I've worked in private training, and I've trained trainers, and now I do online training. Because I've done all this, you start to really understand you've got to have a bunch of options available to you because all my clients are different. Right? Like
Yeah.
most of my online coaches, our clients are fitness coaches themselves who see how I train, and they're like, I want to be able to move like you. You dunk and you're almost 42. How do I still be athletic? And so I train them. And then on Wednesdays, my group kettlebell class is basically all 50-year-olds that have not moved athletically in a long time. Their class looks a little bit different, but it's still governed by the same principles. I still have them moving laterally. I still have them rotating. I still have them doing unilateral work because they all want to play pickleball. And if I can't get some of that into their system, they're going to get hurt on the pickleball court because it'll be the first time they've had a fast eccentric on a back pedal or a side step unless we give it to them.
So we are practically dinosaurs.
We are dinosaurs.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, if you look at the average lifespan of a trainer, of a personal trainer right now in the industry, it's what? Ranging from 6 months to 18 months, something like that. So a year and a half.
Yeah, it's not very long, that's for sure.
Is that a shame? It's because I think that what we do it's a wonderful job.
Yeah, it's really a bummer because it doesn't pay well enough most of the time.
Yeah. It's silly. It's silly. And this is what I really hate about it, and why I started to do my own certification in 2016 because I wanted to change that.
Yeah.
And when I was doing 2 years ago, I was just looking at it today. I was doing a podcast with Jonathan Goodman, amazing guy. And we
ETDC.
talked about, yeah. And I said, John, you know that we all started to do online coaching when it actually wasn't really a thing because I remember that we were sending, like Excel spreadsheets around by emails and so on and so on. There was nothing such like we have today, all the apps and everything. And it's funny. And then I started to do the math. I believe that I took my first online client on like 2009. Facebook was about 2 years old or something like that. So it was way long ago. But yeah, I believe that we are in the industry because I still coach because I like it. I like to work with certain clients. I don't take much clients on, but it makes us dinosaurs of the industry.
100%. It's funny because I did not do online coaching until maybe 4 months ago.
Oh my God, really?
Well, I should say when I was traveling with MoveNat from 2010, beginning of 2011 till 2012, I carried about 10 clients then, and I used Google spreadsheets. That's how I communicated. But then because I had all my, in-person studios, I just didn't have time to add online. And then with PPSC, the amount of certifications that we've been running all over just wasn't time. But this December, John said, hey, I want everybody to take a few clients because we've got coaches that want to train. So let's take them. And I said, great, because I like training people. So this has been very fun. But I'm back to I wanted to ask you on the online clients that you use, do you use an app or do you still use Google Sheets?
Right now, I'm using an app.
Okay.
It's making so many things so much easier for me. Uh,
Yep.
Communication, it's only in one app, so you communicate and everything. Automations are making so many things so much easier for you right now, especially
Yep.
if you have more clients on. Then tracking progress, and you can decide which way you want to track it. It's not just a scale, because I'm still training most of the clients that want to improve aesthetically. So before and after pictures are a huge thing, although
Yeah.
I never post them. I do not. And this is the funny thing. About 70, a bit over 70% of all of my clients throughout my career, and I've been in the industry for since 2000 again, so we're
Yeah.
quite similar on that one. I started to coach when I was 16, and I've all of that, over 70% were female clients that wanted to improve aesthetically. But
Hmm.
I never needed to post any before and after photos. And I was always going away from it because the clientele that I was coaching would not be willing to present themselves in underwear, bikinis, or whatever across social media just for my marketing. But I always had a full schedule anyway. So
Hmm.
I didn't need to. And it feels kind of weird at times when I think that if I want to start, certain programs that I need to put like before and after photos out there, it still feels like I don't really want to, but the market has changed. You know,
Yeah.
look at Instagram, look at TikTok or whatever. And this is something that I was just telling today in my newsletter about is who is your competition actually today? It's not other trainers. It's influencers that don't know what they're talking about, to be fair. And it's the next girl with the biggest butt on Instagram right now, willing to show it off or hitting the right angle in the mirror to make a photo of it. And people will just ask her, okay, what did you do? Because nobody wants to understand that, hey, whatever she did, it worked for her. It will not
Right.
necessarily work for you. So I believe that this is getting really crazy right now because our competition is not really someone that knows the stuff that we talk about, but it's somebody random on social media that is just looking good and has good genetics.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely a thing. It's a lot of the trainers too. Like I'm pretty forthright with people that I've been able to dunk since I was 16. Very clearly, there's a genetic ability to jump higher than most people, especially most goofy 6 foot white guys. And with that being said, my best jumping ever was when I was 35. And that had a lot to do with I knew some more things about training.
Yeah.
And I mean, it makes me wish that I knew what I knew when I was 20. But
Yeah.
but
That's the thing with
but
aging.
but yeah, but to your point, it is very difficult because you asked the question, how do we get general population to start and have progress? Their expectations are colored by what's going on social media
Yeah.
and what they think is available, what they think is doable, what they think they need to do. And quite regularly, it's the opposite of what is probably their best case scenario.
True. True. And this is getting worse and worse with every year. So how do we
Yeah,
change it? How do we
I
change
don't
it?
think,
The fact is, Clifton, if you put something out, you will not be shown to the people as much as that booty going around. You,
no,
you know what I mean? So good information
I
doesn't go around that well.
I think I know what you're asking. You're telling me that I need to start wearing a thong. That's where you're
Didn't
going.
you? Didn't you already do?
Yeah, I definitely
I
did. I
mean,
definitely did.
I remember there was you were what a pink shorts and so on like. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
I wore that this last weekend. I think that focusing on what our small circle of influence is and trying our best to not worry about what we can't control. And I spent a lot of time when I had my studios open worrying about how influential Orange Theory was, how influential the CrossFits were, how influential yoga and Pilates. And my efforts a lot of times were trying to badmouth the other options instead of just saying what we do well. And so, as an example, you haven't had to use before and afters. You just have a good reputation because you deliver results. And so it worked itself out to you're busy all the time. And when I stopped worrying about the other people and comparing what other people are doing and just talked about what we do well, all of a sudden we were busier. And so I think that so often, not only is Instagram and social media giving a false sense of what works, it's also creating a false feeling of need to compete with everybody else at all points. But if we want to be successful as a personal trainer in the industry, what do I need? I need like 20 to 40 clients total, right? Based on how many times they train a week. If I've got a stable of 20 people that train with me twice a week, that's 40 hours. And if I have 40 hours times a good rate, then I have a successful business right then and there. And so regularly, people are just looking at the influencers and he's got a million followers. He must be really busy. Well, because I've traveled and taught enough, I can tell you right now, most of these people that have a lot of followers are not making much money. Like
A lot
they
of them.
just aren't.
A
Yeah.
lot of them, they don't know how to monetize that.
No, they're
It's
selling $5 programs and they have a
yeah,
hundred
yeah.
people on a $5 program.
That's not a good business model. And I always say that, if you're a girl in your mid-20s somewhere, look very good right now, your ass should not be or isn't a long-term business model. It cannot be. It will not be always like that. So you have to, and I believe that's part of the problem. While the lifespan of an average trainer is so short, you get older.
I'm writing that down. It's too funny. I gotta make a note. Your
Yeah,
ass
it's
is
not
not a long
a long-term business
ass
model. It's
is
not.
not a long-term business model. I love it.
It's the
It's amazing.
truth. It's the
Yeah.
truth. And when I'm working with coaches to improve their businesses, it's I'm always trying to make them clear. Look, do not base any kind of business model, any kind of business concept on your looks, because
Right.
your look will change, and you have to accept that we all age. I mean, it's phenomenal what aesthetic surgery can do nowadays, but still, you
Yeah.
get older. And
Yep.
that's just a fact.
Yeah. And it gets harder to maintain your muscle. It gets harder to maintain your strength sticks around, but your
Yeah.
power and your explosiveness, that dwindles pretty quick.
Oh, you tell me about it. It's I always tend to joke about my age. Oh, I'm going to get 40 now. I'm really old. And so I'm not old. I feel still like 30, but I
Yep.
just don't look like it. I got my video guy called me salt and pepper because of, that thing over here. And to be
Yeah.
completely fair, I helped myself with the hair a bit. So I admit that. I really recommend it,
Ah,
by the way,
I don't
so.
I don't have enough to even die.
Oh yeah, you do, man. You do. I can hook you up with some distant clinics, by the way. But no, honestly, I recommend it. I've done that because I was shaving my head when I was doing triathlon back in 2008 until 2012. I was doing my world record attempt on a spinning bike. By the way, I was cycling for 11 days nonstop, almost no sleep, and so on. So I did some crazy stuff in my life as well. But I didn't want to shave my head anymore, and it got thinner and thinner and thinner. So let's go for it. Let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, what you do, you shave it anyway. So
Yeah.
there's not much to lose, but it worked quite fine. So I'm happy with it. Just,
Oh man.
putting it out there. Why not?
Yeah.
But because I don't want to take too much time away from you, so let's wrap this up by the following. If you have to choose like 5 accounts on social media that you would recommend other trainers to follow and to be better, off with training and getting valuable information off of them, what would be your choice of the 5?
Wow. Okay. So I do think Dr. John Rusin has a really good account. And the reason I like what he does, especially over the last year, is he's shifted into much more of a gen pop. These are holistic, so to speak, exercises, functional, if you want to use that term, exercises in order for long-term health longevity training, not just ego lifting or cool looks, but instead like really, really useful. There's a guy named Clifton Harski. He's got an account that is
I will put
equally,
that down there. So if you watch
he's
it,
pretty
there you
funny.
have it.
So I think that after that, this really put me on the spot. As far as a number, I've got, let's see. You know who I'm going to say this is going to be a bit of a contentious choice. I think that David Weck is he's a very entertaining and interesting follow. And the reason I say him is a lot of the athletic stuff that he does with side bending and twisting and turning and single leg, I think is important. Now, we do have to acknowledge that he's a bit eccentric as well. And so the page goes off the rails sometimes.
Okay.
And I was going to say, an asterisk would be his head of program, effectively the same position that I am, but for a different company, Chris Chamberlin. His title is Eroding Weakness.
Oh, yeah. I've come across that one. Yeah.
He's awesome. And so he takes and implements a lot of what David is talking about, but kind of has a different filter. And so makes it a little bit more digestible. Let's see. I think that it's hard to go wrong with my buddy, for an I'm giving you like entertainment plus information. The crazy trainer, my buddy, the crazy trainer, he flips kettlebells a lot, but he's also doing really big lifts. So I like him because he helps prove that like, hey, we can flip around the kettlebell and do athletic stuff. We can also lift heavy. It's not one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to shout out my buddy Jeff LoVecchio. Jeff LoVecchio. So he's an ex-pro hockey player, and now he trains people. He trains similar to I do. It's full body, it's athletic, dominant moves. I think he does a bunch of really good stuff. And then my other buddy here in St. Louis, Dr. Tony Katakis. So he's a chiropractor. He puts out a lot of good mobility stuff, a lot of good physical rehab type of material.
Mm-hmm. Good. So I will definitely add those accounts down below at the video. So guys, if you want to follow those, I mean, you should. The man himself is, giving you the hints. So follow them. You will find that down there in the description of that video. And of course, tell me what you think about our podcast today in the comments below. Clifton, anything else that you want to, just put out today? I know that we could go on like that for hours right now. So I'm just warming up really, but still, because I know, time is precious, family time and so on. It's Friday as we record that. So anything, just like a last thought that you want to share with the world.
No, I think that, hey, if you take one thing away, train athletically, more than you are right now. Don't be scared to do it. Enter in slowly, but having the ability to control your body through space is ultimately the most important thing that we can do. How heavy you lift is cool. How big your biceps or your chest is awesome. But if you move around like a clumsy oaf, nobody's impressed.
That's a good one. Luckily I have the recording, so I will not take notes now, but I will definitely take my notes later on. So guys, Clifton, thank you. Thank you for taking the time away from your working day and from your family time to be here with us today and sharing your wisdom. It's been fun. So let's repeat that anytime soon. I'm always here, open for that, for discussions. And I'm looking forward to see you in Croatia, end of June, and spend some quality time together. Let's go, have a good eat together and so on. So let's plan.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
So guys, if you are listening and you are interested in functional kettlebell training, I will put the sign-up link to the course in the description as well. So you can sign up through that. And if you have any questions, follow the man, Clifton Harski. That's it for today. And I'll see you soon on the next podcast.
Thank you.